Surprise. All right. I think it's time to open a new chapter. It's time to close the chapter and open a new chapter. Right about a year ago now, back in February, I discovered something called the Z80. I'm going to break apart the Z80 and explain why it spooked the ever-living shit out of me. It was misunderstood back then. I hope now people can come to an understanding why the Z80 scared me back in February. The Z80 was essentially a proof of concept on how you could essentially clone companies or products and how you can drive LLMs as essentially crypto mixes of intellectual property. I took a application that was in C. I generated an application in C, and then I compiled it. I then threw away the application that was in C, and then I decompiled it to assembly. Then I threw away both those two things, and I just had assembly. From there, I was in the inner workings of discovery of Ralph. I had kind of refined the technique, and I was just on the break of like running in a loop. And I issued the prompt. Hey, can you study the assembly here? Keep in mind, there's nothing else in the project folder. It's just the assembly. Can you just study the assembly and can you create me some specifications of exactly what this application is? What is this application? And it did its thing. I think this was like Sonnet 3.5 at the time. And it built me the specifications of the application. So the application was essentially a very basic sales tax calculator. Just a toy. Just a toy. I mean, like if it could do this, it could do something bigger. So I've generated this sales tax calculator. I've taken it through the full hog down to assembly, threw away any artifacts so there was no cheating, and I took it up to specs. I had a look at those specs, and the specs looks pretty good. So I threw away the assembly, and now all I had was specs, folks. All I had was specs. It was at that point on a brand new project with just the specs, I did Ralph by hand. And I issued a prompt. Can you convert this Intel application that's in specs and make it run on the Sinclair Z80? Now, it took a lot of time because it wasn't really, the time wasn't on the coding agent side. It was me. I was trying to remember how do I actually create a Sinclair Z80 floppy, and how do I get loopbacks going? How do I close the loop so it can introspect? It was a painful manual process, but the pain wasn't on the AI side. The pain was essentially creating a DevOps loop for a Sinclair Z80 from 1982, 1984. I forget when it is, like old technology. And I went through and I kept chugging on all through. And the answer is yes. Yes, I was able to convert an application from Intel to the Sinclair Z80 from specs. I was able to co-generate from specs. And that was just, for me, that was my proving point that, wow, things aren't going back. And it really spooked me because I was on the verge of discovering Ralph. And I guess what I'll share about Ralph is my son. We were playing Factorio, and we were deep in playing Factorio. We were having so much fun. And he wanted to go watch a movie. He's like, Dad, he's watching me. You seem to be doing the same thing again and again and again. How about you just put it in a loop? So I put it in a loop. And that is how Ralph was born. My son told me to put it in a loop. And he was 9 at that stage. So where I got really, to close off this story arc, where I got really spooked because I realized that you could port from one language to another language, from one CPU architecture to another CPU architecture. And that was the proving point. I ran Ralph in a loop, and the first thing I do was like, okay, well, this is the toy that's on my mind. Can I clone a company or the feature set of a company? Now, a company is normally made up of people when people say the people are the asset. This is true, but what percentage of the people are the asset in the company? I'm sure you know someone who isn't lifting their weight in your current workplace. Anyway, so what does it mean to be in business if you, like, let's say you're a 5,000 person company and you're a SaaS company? What does it mean if someone can just run a Ralph loop to effectively clone your product feature set and enter into market? And it's just two people sitting on a beach in Bali having the time of their lives, living like kings, and they go into competition with that other company with that many people. What happens to all those people? What happens to profit margins? So I set out to prove this theory. So I took the Z80 with Ralph. The first thing I did was I took HashiCorp Nomad. HashiCorp Nomad has the BSL license or AGPL, whatever it is. And I'm like, whew, the way we came to have Intel and AMD CPUs is because of what was called a clean room design technique. What happened was AMD hired an engineer. The engineer generated some specs by reverse engineering the Intel CPU. That engineer is now dirty. They can never work at AMD again. They get some golden handcuffs and they're out. Done. A golden parachute and they're out. However, they created specifications. And these specifications are classified as brand new intellectual property that AMD uses. So what does AMD do? They hire a team of engineers to implement the specifications. And now we've got the AMD CPU. So I know this story because I've been around tech a very long time now. And then you have a look at, I'm thinking, wait a sec, I've got some specs. Could I clean room a company? So I took down HashiCorp Nomad, pulled down the source code, ignored the license, and ran it in a Ralph loop to generate specifications. You see, you can run Ralph in forward mode to build. You can also run Ralph in reverse mode. I don't know how many people picked up on this. You can run Ralph in reverse to automate reverse engineering existing intellectual property, to clean room that intellectual property. And the models weren't as great back then, but it was able to do it. It took a high degree of skill. I was able to essentially build out the product feature set for HashiCorp Nomad. But it was only 80% because HashiCorp didn't release all of the intellectual property. The enterprise stuff wasn't there. So I'm like, oh, how am I going to fix this? How am I going to fix this, folks? I've got 80% there, and all I've done is essentially replicated the product feature set of the open source or the source available side of things. I know. Let's run Ralph in reverse over the user guides, the enterprise user guides, the admin guides, the product feature sets, the marketing data, anything goes. And I got the remaining 20%. And then I ran Ralph in forward mode. And the rest is history. It left me pretty spooked thinking about what is to come. So I did a lot of conference talks, focusing on juniors to invest in themselves. Ralph was released in July-ish after catching up with people in San Francisco. Maybe I should have held on to it a little bit, but what is done is done. And the end result now is if you run Sonnet 4.5, which is a damn good model, in a loop for 24 hours, and then you divide it by 24, you get an hourly cost of $10.42 an hour. Software development is now cheaper than a burger flipper at Macca's. Yep, and it can be done whilst you sleep. This is Ralph. This is Ralph. So that was really scary. So it led to the idea that, like, oh wow, what is a moat in open source, in SaaS now? What is a moat in SaaS now? What is what are software licenses now? Like, if you can literally just create some plausible deniability, what about all these companies that raise these massive rounds, and they've got so many people working for them to be able to, like, that's the old world. The new world is you run a Ralph loop and then you chill on a beach in Bali. It's called Clayton Christensen Disruptive Innovation. This is going to be coming. If you don't think this is not going to be coming, well, one, you should be the one doing it because it's the opportunity of a lifetime right now. Go do it. Two, you should speak with a founder. Right now, founders are shit scared. Absolutely shit scared. Like, get out of your bubble, software developers, because the unit economics have changed in software development forever. Absolutely forever. So I guess this is not the first time these things have happened in society. There was a time when, like, before we had the box or the shipping container, what happened was people used to carry cargo on and off the ships by hand, dock workers. Maybe dock workers are actually software developers because the box just arrived, a way to automate software development. So now we've got the box, and, like, I'll use BS numbers here, but assume it was like $100 a ton, and then it went down to cents a ton now that you could just get some cranes and lift the cargo off the box. It forever changed the shipping industry. I think very similar for what's to come, and what comes after Ralph will do exactly the same. But as we are now, if you run Sonnet in a loop, it is cheaper than minimum wage. Ouch. So it comes into the question: if there is no moat anymore in SaaS, what maybe that's taken a little bit too far. But I'm trying to figure out what the moats are. For the last year, I'm thinking, what is a moat? And the only thing I can really think of is infrastructure. Maybe infrastructure is the only moat left for a founder. So I think the employment market is going to get really, really tight. If you think it's tight now, you ain't seen nothing yet. If you're coming across this video, I hope from this point I'm just going to be like accessible things for knowledge that you must know going forward. Because I've been thinking about it. Been thinking about it for a damn long time. If you're new to the entire thing and this entire thing, this is the story arc or chapter that I'm closing out. I did a whole bunch of public talks around the world, keynotes, lock notes, essentially talking about, oh crap, it's on. It's on like Donkey Kong. It's happening, folks. And it was a big plead for people to invest in themselves because I knew some things. Like, please invest in yourselves. And it's interesting now, we're now a year in, there is now a cohort of people who really get it. They've been practicing for a year. If you think that you can just pick up the latest model and get good at it, yeah, you can. Understand there is a cohort of juniors, at least 6 months of juniors before you, who got syndicated, where my post got syndicated by the Prime Gen, and they paid attention. They have been Ralphing. If you're a senior software engineer right now and you're just picking up the tools now, how much is your paycheck? How much is a junior's paycheck? They've got 6 months advantage on you, and it's not about the models. They've learned tricks. They know how to tune the guitar. They know how to do all these really cool things. A year in, myself, I'm able to I know about loopbacks and what type of tricks work and don't work. And it's sad that other people don't know this as well. I'll be sharing these in time. So it's important. You don't just wait for the models that get good, because when the models get good, it's game over if you haven't been paying attention. And this is a lot of the motivations behind this blog post. What do you mean that some software developers are not going to get it? In here, I explain a natural evolution where a software developer just doesn't make it in their current company due to employee performance bell curves, so like the gradings that happen. In a high performance company, they're normally 6 months, sometimes they're 12 months. This is not going to happen at all industries all at once. But this was me. This was the steps that I personally went through, and I went through other engineers. And I was like, huh. Like, I was originally up on the top left. And I'm like, it's not good enough. Prove it to me it's not hype. You start experimenting with it. And then you get this like, oh fuck. And what just happened in December is a whole bunch of people finally picked up the guitar and played. And they discovered the oh fuck. Because I'm just going to draw something here that should be painfully obvious to people. If I draw a line down here, I no longer hire people on the left side of the equation unless they're damn exceptional. I'm looking for AI first engineers who have 6 months to a year's worth of knowledge. Unless you got some spectacular skills or you're very close to getting there, you're not in the hiring pool, folks. What you do is you pay this person here pretty well, and the person who is automating their job function, you pay them exceptionally. And I'm speaking with founders and in group chats with other founders, and yeah, it's matching their mental model as well. I remember a couple of days ago, someone shared something with me. They did a commit graph of all the commits done in the company. And what it was is out of all the engineers in the company, you imagine that it was this for a select few of people. And everyone else was like that. Because like this was Ralphing. It was all leadership. They're all back on the tools. And it's kind of crude to say, but like you somewhat joke, like keep those, fire the rest. Really crude, because they're doing that, and everyone else is doing that. And when you probe a little bit more, it's like we can't. Well, who are those people? Well, they're the leadership team. The leadership team are on the tools, and this is established engineering org. They're all technical founders. Folks, this is coming. This is coming. Go speak with founders. There is no boat. The business model has changed. And the problem with, I guess, why would you like, if this person understands that this is coming, why would you not put them in the consideration pool? It's because the person could run back up the hill. This is a psychological distress area. We got this right now in mass in the industry. You never know what someone would do if they're deer in the headlights and in distress. Do they lean into it and get good? So you throw a ladder down and you rescue them. But they might run back up the hill and say that like AI is fascism. There are people out there right now saying, I will never use AI because it's fascism. Meanwhile, the line's coming, folks. There's a cohort of people who got exceptionally good at this in the last year because they've been investing in themselves. There's half a cohort of juniors who have been applying themselves. Pay attention, folks. Cool. Enough fear type things. It's a cold heart brutal topic, and I just like to not be able to say it anymore. I'm saying this with care, real absolute care. It's coming, folks. Anyway, so I'm going to close this out and quickly talk about why you may not be seeing it. If you're in corporate, expect to see a 3 to 4 year transformation program, kind of like how we had agile coaches type stuff. You see, in corporate, what happens is corporate has all these standards and all the things, and they're trying to bend LLMs to do corporate with corporate data sets and like coding standards and all this stuff. And my grave concern is by the time these corporates actually do these transformation programs, That's enough time on a Clayton Christensen scale for disruptive innovation for a couple people in Bali building a model first company. Go find people. If you're not sure what your next job is, find a model first company. Otherwise, you're going to be going through some crazy times. Going to be going some crazy times, and I suspect it's going to be kind of like Titanic. Sorry, this lifeboat is full. Get the next lifeboat. So either go be those two people in Bali, like use the knowledge of Z80, go clone a company and go live a great life. Props. If you do that and you make millions, go buy me a beer or something later in life. But for everyone else, let's get to skills. Let's get to skills. In this over here, in this talk, I talked about, here we go, black and white. There's not going to be mass layoffs due to AI. What we'll see is a natural attrition. Well, I think the natural attrition is going to be sped up, and it's sped up because AI is getting really good, and there's now a pool. Like everyone's going to be going after that 1 year experience, 6 months experience pool. And then if I look at this, I remember this. I remember my coworkers thinking I was goddamn mad when I said IDEs are going away. Like, yeah, I mean, like, well, they're gone. Like, I don't really use them. I use them as like a explorer.exe or finder.app now. Like, I use them as a crash cart to connect and diagnose what's going on with an agent. I know that's not universally true in all disciplines, but it's coming. And I remember people equally saying that Boris and Dario were bonkers for saying that AI would generate all the code and this would happen. We're here. We're here. When you start building AI products with these concepts I'm going to get into now, it gets recursive. You start building a product with AI that can self-improve itself, and the speed that it happens at is shockingly terrifying. Shockingly terrifying. So it's so easy to dismiss something if you don't see it happening. Doesn't mean it's not happening. There are model first companies right now, like Y Combinator companies have been Ralphing for the last 6 months. That's why I had to publish the blog post, because like the word would get out and someone put the name on the technique, yada, yada, yada. So let's quickly dig into this. If I was to ask you what a linked list is, you should know what a linked list is. Cool. But how many of you actually can pull out a whiteboard and build me an agent? Can you show me the inferencing loop? If you don't know this, your career is in jeopardy. Your career is in jeopardy. You need to know the inferencing loop. You need to know that the server has no memory. It's just an array. It's an array that's continually appended to. A tool call automatically appends to that array. What is a tool call? If you don't know what that is, you need to learn what it is. And all these basic fundamentals. So now I look for candidates and I preference candidates if they know what a tool call is, how the inferencing loop works. Pull out a whiteboard, the same way we used to like show me a linked list, reverse me this data structure, that type of stuff. This is now baseline knowledge because we're getting candidates in that can answer this stuff. That's what you're competing against, people who have been curious. Okay, so which really, to close off this deep topic, is someone can be highly experienced as a software engineer in 2024, but that does not mean they're skilled as a software engineer in 2026 or 2025 when I first gave this talk, because the baseline knowledge you need to get a job has changed. And it's changing really fast, but these fundamentals never go away. So let's do something here. To try to send some ladders down to juniors and other people who are curious, I made a workshop. And this workshop is called How to Build an Agent. We're going to critically look at Cursor, Windsurf, AMP, Claude Code and all these other coding agents. And I want you to like understand that they are 300 lines of code run in a loop. That's all it is. It's really simple. There are so many companies out there and people, they're hopping like open code's better. Anti-gravity's better. This is better. That is better. That is better. That is better. It's just noise. It's just noise. They're all the same. This is the freaking same. The models do all the work. The models do all the work, not the harness. The harness just put out the strong brand marketing game, folks, and they take a different stab at design on how to particularly solve problems. It's the models that do all the work. Stop flapping around with the model drop down selector unless you're like me and you actually want to anamorphize a model, or you have particular needs that you want. For this type of domain or problem, you want to use a thinking model. For this domain or problem, you want an agentic model. So a thinking model is more OpenAI-ish, O3, and an agentic model is more like Sonnet or Opus. Cool. So I built this workshop, and I really stressed that it was not hard to build a coding agent. And we went through and done it. I've never actually done a recording of this talk, and it's kind of late, so I'm going to botch this up. Hopefully at another conference I'll give this, because it's basically this will transform you from being consumer. If I come back to this very crude MS Paint, the consumer is this one here, someone just using MS Paint. If you want edge, you got to know these fundamentals. You got to know how to program AI. Cool. So it transforms you from being consumer to someone who can actually automate things. So let's pull it up. Here. Surprise, surprise, Ralph is a bash loop that system calls the tool calls. Well, I like to see it as a malloking orchestrator. It's meant to be crude, it's meant to be simple, because it makes it easy for it to be taught. Well, cursor is similar. A tool call, there was a time when we were using GPT-3.5 where GPT-3, you used to have to like have an IDE open, and you had to have the web browser open. You ask, I want a Python program. And it would generate a Python program. Cool. And then you would copy and paste it over into the IDE, press compile, and then you copy and paste the compilation errors. And you put it back and backwards and forwards. You just copy and pasting. Tool calling was essentially the automation of copy and pasting. So first up, most fundamental is AI is really you ask for the user input, their prompt, you get the response. It's an array and there's some structure to it. I'm not going to get into here. It's easy for you to learn that stuff. So much documentation out there, and it's sent off for inferencing. Cool. And then you print the response. So let's say that I was to say, hey, what's the weather today? Well, it would send it off, and it would come back and goes, well, I don't know. I'm an AI. Well, to actually get the weather going, you actually need to register a tool. You need to register a tool, folks. So let's have a look. How do you register a tool? You do a tool registration. You do a tool registration. You also remember to provision a Anthropic API key before you go live and stream. So give me a moment. All right, welcome back. Sorry about amateur hour. This is I'm not a professional YouTuber. I'm sorry about audio levels. I've got a new microphone arriving tomorrow, hopefully. So that's going to be a Shure SM57B and a microphone stand. So audio quality is going to be better in the next ones. So enough of that. Let's bring in our API key. And if I accidentally show the API key, have fun. It's only got 20 bucks in the account. Cool. If I go run chat.go, this is the workshop. It's available on GitHub, ghuntley.com/agents, or just search how to build an agent. It's on GitHub. It's got 5.5 or 6K of stars, whatever it is. Like there's a lot of people who have built an agent. You are competing against those people who have built an agent. I look for this skill and this knowledge because it's a sign of curiosity. It's signal. If you're interviewing people, you should be looking for this signal right now. And quickly, because I almost showed the API key, knew that would happen. Okay, so before we got on that sidetrack, we're talking about what's tool registration. We're like, tell me the weather. Tell me the weather in Sydney. And authentication error. Yay, it's going to be one of those streams. Anyway, so the main point I want to make is I'm going to just talk through it. What you can do is you can just give it a prompt. This is a tool registration. And what happens is it will, when it comes back from the inferencing turn, it will go, well, I need to execute the tool that's been advertised me because it's in the array, and it's going to do inferencing. It's going to come back. The tool is then executed on the local computer, and the results are automatically copied and pasted back, and it's sent back for more inferencing. And at that point, it comes back again. That's another turn. And it displays what the weather is. It goes, hey, the weather today in Melbourne is grand, or Sydney is grand. From that point forward, you've got your tools, you've got your tool registrations, and this is the flow. You've got your original chat, and you've in your harness, you've advertised the functionality, which is just a method, which could be an API to get the weather, and a billboard on top that says, hey, I've got a capability. I can tell you of the weather if you ask me, if the model asks me. So you get the user input, what is the weather? And then you send it off to the server for inferencing, and it comes back. It goes, I really want to execute that capability that you advertised. I want to execute that capability that you advertised. And you go, if it wants the tool, then you execute the tool, then you add it back into the array, you send it off for more inferencing. And it's a shame that the workshop isn't properly working because I half-assed this. But all coding tools are essentially a collection of the following tools. You advertise a capability to read files from the local file system. So the user says, hey, study spec star. And then it will call the read tool. And the read tool automatically copy and paste the contents of that files that it discovers back and put it back for inferencing and yada, yada, yada. We're done. The next thing from there is a list tool. A list tool is kind of like this is the files of my file system. These are the files of my file system. So it makes the model awareness. So what would happen is you got the list tool. It's like, find me, if I go study prompt spec / star, and I've got a read tool and a list tool registered, what will happen is it goes, well, I don't know what star is, so I'm going to execute the list tool to look at what files are in that folder. And then I'm going to invoke the read tool to read the files that I desire. Notice that there's so much inefficiency here. It's like a multi-turn step. It's not like I'm going to discover it all myself locally and then send it to the server. No, there's so many turns going backwards and forwards on each request. There's so much here that can be optimized. And if you're thinking like an engineer, you'd be not liking this inefficiency. There's so much more that we can do. And then likewise, you'd be like, okay, cool. I now have a ability to read a file. Look what files are in a folder. I guess the next thing from there is like I give it a prompt. Can you run PS on my computer or run sudo on my computer? Well, you need a bash tool. So it does the turns backwards, forwards, and executes the bash tool, and it sends it back for more inferencing. And why this matters is if you add in a edit tool, you now have a full-blown coding harness. You can do this workshop in under 30 minutes, folks. You can do this workshop in under 30 minutes, and this is baseline knowledge to be hired in 2026. And I speak with other founders, and we're like, yeah, this is the bar now, because there is a pool that we can hire from that has this knowledge. And if they have this knowledge, they're not a consumer, they're a builder. People want builders. People want builders. And why this is really interesting is, and why Cursor is really cool, and why Ralph is really cool, it's really just a loop. If you take these 4-5 simple primitives, run in a loop, you built your own cursor. If you understand these primitives and you understand like context windows and how to allocate them and how these tools work, then you're basically on your way to becoming a mechanic who just doesn't do engine swaps. You're a mechanic that actually knows how to rebuild an engine and has rebuilt a couple of carburetors before in life. This is the line difference now. This is some baseline fundamental knowledge that isn't really being taught. However, I did notice, I think it's Stanford is now teaching this knowledge. So yeah, it's getting late. Sorry for such a dark talk, but like, please go build your agent. There is a goddamn line coming. You might not be feeling it yet because maybe your company is going to be going for a multi-year transformation program. So you have a choice. Do you hang around for a multi-chance transportation platform when you're the one or two that own in the company that get it? Or do you just go hang around people who do get it because they are concerned for what is coming? Folks, please invest in yourself. Until next time, and I hope next time I'll actually do some prep with the thing so the workshop actually works. Until then, I'm going to be doing a live stream podcast in the morning, so I'll see you in the morning. I'm going to get to bed. Until next time.